Who wants to hear a success story? No need to raise your hand, but oh, thank you. That's good. We all like success stories, mostly when they happen to us or those we are closest to. I begin with God's word from Isaiah chapter 46, verses 3 and 4. Listen to me, O house of Jacob, all you who remain of the house of Israel, you whom I have upheld since you were conceived. I have carried you since your birth. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he. I am he who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. Max Lucado writes about verse 4 in his devotional Grace for the Moment. He says, growing old can be dangerous. The trail is treacherous, and the pitfalls are many. One is wise to be prepared. You know it's coming. It's not like God kept the process a secret. It's not like you are blazing a trail as you grow older. It's not as if no one has ever done it before. Look around you. You have ample opportunity to prepare and ample case studies to consider. If growing old catches you by surprise, don't blame God. He gave you plenty of warning. He also gave you plenty of advice. Your last chapters can be your best. Your final song can be your greatest. It could be that all of your life has prepared you for a grand exit. God's oldest have always been among his choices. When I read Max's devotion on aging a couple of weeks ago when I was younger than I am now, I couldn't help but think of my mom and her journey to joy. Joy is a goal that has taken her 82 years to achieve. Not that there hasn't been laughter, good days, nice nights, family and friends along the way, but her lifetime level of joy seems to pale in comparison to the last 3 months. Last August, I gave a devotion from a passage in 1 John that explains why we love God. It seems so simple, it's because he first loved us. I tried to tie that into the seemingly never-ending sense of servanthood and duty my siblings and I felt obligated to perform as my mom aged and her health waned. I closed that devotion with the statement, when will it ever end? Well, our obligations haven't ended, but the story sure is different than what I thought I would be telling you today. On Saturday, February 11th, just a few months ago, I was called to my mom's apartment in Brandon by my older sister, Sandy. I got the call because I also live in Brandon and can go all fire rescue with little notice. My sister told me that my mom couldn't get out of her chair and needed some help. This was not an oddity. My mom has suffered from heart disease, diabetes, and diabetes-related ailments for many, many years. She had open heart surgery in her 50s. She is now 82. So I zoom over to my mom's house. I quick knock on the door and enter to find my mom's husband standing in the kitchen. He says she can't get out of the chair. I walk past him to the very nearby living room and find my mom unresponsive, in a curled up fetal position, just shaking. I called to her a couple of times and told Darwin, my mom's husband, not my dad, I was going to call the ambulance. He says, we can't afford it. I told him it doesn't matter, we can't move her, and she needs attention right away. I've seen my mom in pretty poor situations before, but I've never seen her like this. I honestly thought she was going to die right in front of me. I called 911 and gave them as much information over the phone that I could while they dispersed an ambulance. Paramedics arrived, they stabilize her as best they can and get her on a gurney, then into the ambulance for a trip to Sanford. Another day, an emergency. I'm making the necessary calls to my siblings to tell them where we're headed and that my mom will be an overnight for sure. Overnight indeed. She actually ended up staying until Tuesday afternoon. Blood sugars stabilized, bad cough, possible pneumonia. She spends Tuesday night in her apartment trying to sleep in the fetal chair, and then Wednesday morning, ding ding, round 2. This time my younger sister Tina takes her to Sanford. RSV, pneumonia, and blood sugar levels all over the place. We're into some serious rehospitalization reimbursement issues at this point, but she ends up staying for several days. My mom's a mess. Can't sleep, doesn't have an appetite, and is on oxygen. Sunday morning, February 19th arrives. You know, easy like a Sunday morning. Not so for Diane and Darwin. I'm at church with my family, and for the first time since 2012, I forget my cell phone. No biggie, I'll get it when I get it. After church, I run over to Sanford to see how dear old mom is doing. I bop up to the 4th floor and see a sign on her door, see nurse before entering room. I'm thinking it's a quarantine issue. At this point, I think they've discovered Ebola or some other heinous virus that she has. So I go to the nurse's station and ask about Diane. The nurse tells me she's in there with her kids and a chaplain. I said, well, I'm one of her kids, and why is there a chaplain in there? She said, "It's because her husband died this morning." I entered the room and find my brother Bob and my sister Sandy and a chaplain with my mom. And at this point, I'm thinking, if the Brandon strain of Ebola hasn't taken her, this has got to be the last punch this old lady can take. Not quite. 82 years old, in a hospital for a variety of ailments, husband and primary caregiver dead. Living alone isn't an option, but that doesn't really matter right now. We had to plan for her next stop, not being sure how much hospital time we had left. Well, we found out rather soon. She was discharged from Sanford on Tuesday at noon to be admitted to Good Samaritan Society Lutheran Manor for rehab by 2 p.m., the same day as her husband's visitation at the funeral home. A few things going on. Tuesday afternoon at Lutheran Manor is when the good news started. It sounds kind of cold, but it's true. My sisters Donna and Tina got her to Lutheran Manor before 2 p.m. I was going to pick her up for the visitation by 4, so I got there around 3 and found my mom being attended to by a CNA named Zane. More good news. This kid knew her situation and treated her with amazing kindness and compassion. He literally calmed her down in less than 2 minutes. I could see the physical and mental change in my mom as Zane spoke to her calmly and prepared her for the afternoon at the funeral home. I visited briefly with Carol, the director of social services, and she told me that with the unique circumstances, we could delay the official admission to Wednesday afternoon following the funeral. Zane tried to freshen her up as best he could, and then Diane was whisked away again to meet family and friends and begin saying goodbye to her husband. Exhausted, with no idea of what her future would bring, I took my mom back to Lutheran Manor after a long afternoon of greeting family and friends. I wheeled her into her room, and this army of staff appeared like angels from heaven. They arranged for a meal in her room. We sat her down in the lift chair, and my mom says, "It's so nice to be home." That statement really stuck with me because my mom had barely spent more than 30 minutes total at Lutheran Manor. I think she finally realized that at that point, God was in charge of everything. As much as I don't want to be in a situation like hers, I long for that kind of relief. Lord, I'm at your mercy. The funeral on Wednesday went well. Another odd statement to make, but it's true. It was a gorgeous day in February. What snow we had melted, and Mom was able to be wheeled to the graveside as the day's services closed. She held up remarkably well and had an energy I hadn't witnessed in several years. Back to Luther for admission and some real rest for Mama. I worked directly with Carol during admission. Evidently, my siblings considered me more the responsible one and thought I might have an in because of where I'm employed. Not so. I'm treated just like everybody else. Thankfully, I had all her personal and medical information readily available because of all the applications I'd filled out over the years for affordable housing, assisted living, et cetera, et cetera. Over the next 21 days came the real medical care. Mom's diabetes was totally out of control. The nursing staff took it as a personal challenge to stabilize her blood sugar levels. They hadn't seen anything quite like it. I think all of the years of self-medicating between insulin and candy bar infusions had taken a huge toll on her health. This staff was bound and determined to get her moment-to-moment spikes and lows managed, and they did. After 2 weeks, they were able to teach her diet discipline, solve the medicine mysteries, and rehabilitate her physically by making her use muscles she hadn't used in years. The turnaround was remarkable, actually miraculous. My mom's soul and spirit returned. She had always been able to put on a show, but I always knew she was struggling physically and emotionally. God had provided her an oasis in the form of a skilled rehab facility with a sign in front that says, the Evangelical Lutheran Good Samaritan Society. She had made it through the desert at great cost to her and to others, but she made it by the grace and mercy of God the Father and the hands, feet, and heart of Jesus Christ in the form of Good Samaritan staff. And don't think for a minute you didn't have anything to do with this recovery. Some of you had a hand in providing health care and quality policies to heal her. Some of you provided the IT infrastructure that allows medical records to be quickly received and updated. Some of you had a hand in training and guiding the CNAs and administrators in training that will move on to provide and improve care in another facility somewhere at Good Samaritan. Some of you deal with the complexity of Medicare and Medicaid each and every day, and I'm so grateful it's not me. Some of you made decisions over the years that kept this vital organization viable and effective in more than one uncertain time in healthcare history. All of you made it okay, more than okay, to pray for a new patient that was scared and didn't know what the next day would bring. And as my mom finally acknowledges without any shame, God gave her the next day. To all of you, all the staff at Luther Manor under Julie Marco's leadership, and to God our Father, I say thank you. Thank you for saving my mom.